Thank you. An excellent one.
Chairpersons and faculty for that wonderful session. We'll move on to the next session. For this, we have the chairperson, Dr. Shobna Mohandas. So I'm just sharing my screen. And Dr. Shobna Mohandas, she is the Chief Consultant Gynecologist and Laparoscopic Surgeon at Sun Medical Center, Thrissur. And she's also the President-elect Indian Menopause Society for the year 2022 and Chairperson Women Doctors Wing IMA Thrissur and President Mission Pink Health, that is a platform of IMA, and past Vice President, Secretary General Website Committee Chair of and Fifth Chair of IMS and member FOXY Food and Drug Committee, past member of the Endocrinology Committee and South Zone Coordinator of FOXY Hysteroscopy Workshops for the year 2011 and Vice President IMA Thrissur, and she has authored 2 textbooks in gynecology and contributed many chapters to several textbooks, and she has been an invited faculty for many conferences. With this few words, I invite Dr. Shobna Mohandas to take over the session and chair and conduct the proceedings. Over to Dr. Shobna.
Thank you, Dr. Punya Moideen. Can I have the CV of Dr. Prasanna Kumari, Madam? It's my proud privilege to invite Dr. Prasanna Kumari, Madam, to give a talk on hormone replacement therapy. And she is a teacher of teachers coming initially from Trivandrum. Now she is at Adur Lifeline Hospital. She's past President KFO, President Adur ONG Society, former professor at Kozhikode and Trivandrum and GM. And she has authored many textbooks in ONG, published articles in index journals, and she is authority in ultrasound as far as I know, and she is my teacher also. And when she told me, you must always trace the cervix before you call a pregnancy intrauterine or extrauterine, and I had made that blunder in a conference. So she is a person who calls a spade, and I'm sure that you will teach all of us, Madam. You are the teacher of teachers, such a senior person, and you will enlighten us correctly on hormone replacement. Welcome, Madam, to IMS Calicut also.
Thank you, Dr. Shobana, for the kind introduction. Good evening, everybody. And I thank Dr. Ajita and the IMS Calicut team and Dr. Punya Moideen and Perindalmanna Society for inviting me. Shall I share my screen?
Yeah, please, ma'am. You can share.
So we are on to hormone therapy. Let us start from the history of hormone therapy, from the past to the present. This hormone therapy started as early as 1916. And at that time, it was thought that it is Feminine Forever. This Feminine Forever is a book written by William. And this book was an ever-selling book. Because he emphasized that menopause is a hormone deficiency disease and is completely curable and totally preventable. Just take estrogen, that's all. And estrogen was presented as a therapy for estrogen loss and hence conserved fertility. And let us see what happened later on. And the old tape was hormone replacement therapy, and it was prescribed for the protection of heart and bone also. Not only for hot flashes, but for prevention of heart disease and osteoporosis and even Alzheimer's disease. And at present, we use the tape menopausal hormone therapy or simply hormone therapy for the use of estrogen alone or estrogen plus progesterone. And estrogen alone is ET and estrogen plus progesterone is EPT, but we generally use MST. And this, what happened in 1970 was, people were taking estrogen alone and for becoming feminine forever, and endometrial cancer increased. And it was prescribed for even prevention of coronary heart disease and osteoporosis. And because of the understanding that if you add progesterone, it will prevent the incidence of endometrial cancer, and progesterone was added. to prevent endometrial cancer. And evaluated the estrogen alone therapy. You can see the heading. See, what happened was this estrogen and progesterone combination therapy was widely used. And if you had been manufacturing this estrogen and progesterone in the years around 1993, 94, or 99, you'd have become somebody like Bill Gates, because that much of hormone therapy was very popular at that time, especially in Europe and as well as in the US. And then what happened was the ACPG also promoted estrogen hormone therapy for prevention of these chronic diseases as well, along with the prevention and treatment of hot flashes. And then the FDA said categorically that there should be an RCT to say that hormone can be given for the prevention of these chronic diseases like coronary heart disease and Alzheimer's disease and osteoporosis. So that is how the first RCT came, and that was the HER study, the estrogen and progesterone replacement therapy. It was studied in some 2,700 women, and women of 44 to 79 were recruited for the study, and it was given for women who are already having known heart disease. That means the secondary prevention of coronary heart disease was studied by the first study. And that the study brought out the fact that it increased the incidence of coronary heart disease. And it did even death. So that was stopped. And then came the largest study, WHO study. You can't see the WHO heading. WHO study, the World Health Initiative study. And that recruited some 27,000 women, and the age was between 44 and 79. And what they studied was not the effect on hot flashes, but the effect on coronary heart disease and other things, Alzheimer's disease and bone density, etc., etc. And this trial, it consists of two arms. One is the unopposed estrogen arm, which is given to the women who had hysterectomy, and the combined estrogen progesterone arm, which is given to the women who have uterus. The mean age was 63 years, and the age range was from 44 to 79, up to 80. And they found that there was an excess risk of coronary heart disease, venous thromboembolism, and breast cancer. So with the advantage of decrease in colorectal cancer, decrease in hip fracture, and of course all-cause mortality was less. But invasive breast cancer was more, and the coronary heart disease was 2 times or 2.5 times additionally. This is the estrogen only arm, which is slightly better than the progesterone added arm. The estrogen progesterone arm was stopped in 2002, and this was followed till some 12 or 13 years, combined the estrogen alone arm. And there was a 31% increase in the incidence of stroke risk and an increase in ischemic but not hemorrhagic stroke. In the unopposed estrogen trial, stroke risk was significantly increased, conjugate estrogen versus placebo. And the estrogen used was the conjugated estrogen, and the progesterone was medroxyprogesterone. And the majority of the women, as I already said, elderly women. And the risk of breast cancer increased, and the risk of breast cancer was more in the estrogen plus progesterone arm, and it was a little bit less in the estrogen plus intermittent progesterone arm, and it was much less in the estrogen only arm. And about cognitive effect, both unopposed estrogen and combined estrogen progesterone had a global cognitive benefit in older non-dependent, and no benefit in older non-dependent postmenopausal women. and neither type prevented dementia. As they have already anticipated, it didn't do anything good about dementia. And on the contrary, it increased the risk. You can see the very famous film, The Notebook, where, very dedicated husband reading the book to his demented wife. So contrast WHO results, some but not all epidemiological studies made out that the women who take hormone therapy soon after menopause have a decreased incidence of later dementia. In the ALLY trial, where early versus late intervention trial, estradiol was given and MSC had no effect on cognitive function compared to placebo, whether started early or late. So that is our final conclusion, that even if you start it early, it will not affect the cognitive function or dementia. And the biliary tract disease significantly increased. And even now we give, one thing I remember at this point is, when we give a lot of progesterone to this so-called high-risk pregnancy after IVF, we find that even progesterone causes cholestasis. So don't give more than 600 milligram progesterone up to 16 weeks. And even after 16 weeks, we can reduce the progesterone. We can even stop the progesterone. If we give a lot of progesterone, that will cause biliary disease. This is the first study which came before the WHO study. And that was, as I already said, it was a secondary prevention. And it didn't show any benefit in the secondary prevention of heart disease due to hormones. And so there was a decline in hormone use. And after 2002, the hormone use came down from 22% to 4.7%. There's an 80% decrease in the use of hormones. But the analysis was not stratified by age. It was given even up to 79 years. Let us see what happened when we reanalyze the results in the younger women. In the younger postmenopausal women, the sub-analysis showed that if you start between the ages of 50 and 59, the risk-benefit profile was favorable. So we made out, and some other studies also made out that if women were given when they are less than 10 years of menopause, or started within 2-3 years after menopause, there is a reduction in the risk. There is an advantage. And there is another study where it was double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, which came after the WHO study, after the sub-analysis of the WHO study. This study, the surrogate markers of atherosclerosis, and they found that there's no significant difference when you give hormones compared to placebo. The KEEP study provided valuable information regarding categorized group of recently menopausal women, because they benefit from hot flushes, sleep disturbance, and sexual function. And of course, along with that, they will have a reduction in their bone loss during treatment. And the current MSU regime is not conjugated estrogen, it is 17-beta estradiol. It's available. A near natural product which can be used as oral, transdermal, or even as gel. It's available in our place as gel. Instead of methoxyprogesterone, which has an adverse effect on the lipid profile, we have macronized progesterone. All women who have uterus should have progesterone also. And if you use macronized progesterone instead of methoxyprogesterone, the risk of breast cancer also can be reduced. A number of factors have to be considered before starting menopausal hormone therapy. You have to think whether this woman need a hormone or not. Then only you start. Because most of us may be remembering husband and wife coming and the husband complaining that this lady is very difficult to manage nowadays and she has changed a lot. And all this because of the hot flashes mainly and the sleepless nights. So if we can take care of that, then of course we can improve their quality of life. And it has to be started early. Healthy, if you can stress the point that if you give to healthy, relatively young postmenopausal woman, it can be given for even 5 years without any increased risk. What about mood lability, depression, etc.? If it is because of cold pressures and sleeplessness, it will improve if you give hormones. And sometimes she might need SSRI also. You may have to refer the patient to the psychiatrist. Joint aches and pains also might get better with hormones. And this is another symptom, vulvovaginal atrophy, burning sensation, recurrent UTI, dyspareunia, and all this can be simply treated by vaginal estrogens. And the hormones means the estrogen and progesterone are no longer indicated for prevention of coronary heart disease, osteoporosis, and cognitive function or prevention of dementia. Not at all. So how you have to calculate the risk of the patient for breast cancer as well as coronary heart disease. Endocrine Society's clinical practice guideline, they have a tool to calculate the risk of breast cancer as well as coronary heart disease. And you calculate the risk, and if the patient comes below the risk, then only you start the hormones. Otherwise, don't give. We have to resort to alternatives. Women in the menopause, late menopausal transition or early postmenopause, it can be a cyclic combined regimen where you give 17 beta estradiol, 0.025 milligram, twice weekly is enough, or 0.5 milligram daily orally, and cyclical oral micronized progesterone, 200 milligram, at least 7 days in a calendar month. It's easy for the patient to remember if you advise her to take the progesterone from 1st of month to 12th months. So that she'll remember every first she has to start and take it for 12 days. 80 to 90% will have monthly withdrawal reading. That also you have to tell the patient. And if she had been menstruating, then it is okay for her. For women with significant mood symptoms, of course, as I already said, SSRI may be added. And if she is 2 to 3 years post final menstrual period, then it is better to give a combined regimen because she may find it difficult to handle the withdrawal bleeding. So it should be a combined regimen where you give 17 beta estradiol 1 milligram, oral transdermal 0.05 milligram, and twice a week is enough. And you give micronized progesterone 100 milligram daily so that she will not have continuous, she will not have withdrawal bleeding. But unscheduled bleeding is a side effect. But you tell the patient that it will subside over a few months. Surgical menopause, you remember this beautiful lady? She had her ovaries removed and she started on HRT. If it is surgical menopause, it is more traumatic. Definitely she will have severe symptoms and she might need a higher dose. It should be 2 milligram instead of 1 milligram, and transdermal should be 0.1 milligram. And oral contraceptives, if she has a uterus, oral contraceptives also may be needed. What about Tibolol? Tibolol is a synthetic steroid. Yes, Tibolol is a synthetic steroid whose metabolites have estrogenic, androgenic, and progesteronic properties. And so many women used to take this Tibolol every day. and it reduces vasomotor symptoms. It has beneficial effect on BMD, bone mineral density, and there will be modest improvement in sexual function, but it increases the risk of recurrence among women who had breast cancer. And it may increase the risk of stroke. The LIFT trial, the long-term intervention fracture with tibolone was stopped prematurely because of the risk of stroke. But still, there are so many women who use tibolone. And those days of around 2000 to 2008, so many were using tibolone for years together. And before you prescribe, we have to take a history, see her lifestyle, smoking, drinking habits, mental diseases, depression. And she has depression, it has to be treated first. And a family history of Alzheimer's disease, osteoporosis, diabetes, endometrial cancer, breast cancer, liver disease. And we have to assess whether this lady is at high risk for malignancies. And we have to examine the patient. Don't prescribe without examining the patient. We have to see her BMI and do a pelvic examination. Take a pap smear, breast examination, and if possible, a transvaginal ultrasound, and then really start. And about blood examinations, it is ideal that she should have a liver function and kidney function test and blood sugar examination. Mammography, if the clinical circumstance is suspicious. Based on individual risk, we have to calculate. And the goal of therapy is primarily to relieve hot flashes. The WHO study didn't address hot flashes at all. And nowadays we prescribe only for these hot flashes and the sleeplessness because of the hot flashes and the genitourinary symptoms. And other symptoms which respond along with this therapy is the mood lability, depression, joint aches and pains. And the associated advantage is the positive effect on BMD. She's taking, don't give it for improving the BMD. You give it for the other symptoms. Then of course, along with that, she will have an effect on the BMD. And the genitourinary symptoms can be treated with local steroid. And another thing which I would like to say in this point is that the bone mineral density and the health of postmenopausal woman should be cared for as early as the woman is in her mother's womb. So the calcium which the mother takes when she is inside her womb, that's there it starts. So we have to make sure that all pregnant women takes extra calcium because our diet will not contain the adequate calcium. And her calcium intake during the as she said, child or an adolescent or even pregnancy is very, very important. And health after 40 should be taken care of, as I already said, much earlier. So it's our responsibility to advise pregnant women and the children. And starting from childhood, we have to advise. Another thing is, you should be advising her to maintain her weight. And she cannot reduce her weight when she becomes 55 or 65 as me. She should reduce her weight when she is much younger. And she should start her regular exercise as a child. So all this should be taught. And coming to the types of estrogens, all types of estrogens are effective for relieving hot flashes. And this, as I already said, transdermal subcutaneous implants, topical gels, lotions, vaginal rings. See, they all relieve the symptoms, but the choice depends upon the local availability and cost and the patient's preference. Some patients may prefer the vaginal ring because it needs to be inserted once in a month. And some patients may prefer the topical gel because you're not interfering, just touch the skin, that's all. And some may prefer the application once a month, the implant. So anything depending upon the patient's preference and the local availability. Nowadays, we have the topical gels and we have measured amount coming out with each press. So that's very important, very easy for the patient to use. Transdermal or oral, what is it? It should be avoided if the patient has hyperglycemia and active gallbladder disease, or she's a non-thrombophilia patient, or she has a factor failure mutation, which is diagnosed during a pregnancy, or a family evaluation. Transdermal estrogen should be prepared for women who have migraine with aura. Migraine is not a contraindication. So you can give her hormones, but it's better to give the transdermal preparation because it bypasses the hepatic route. The baseline risk of VT is very low among otherwise healthy young postmenopausal women. It should be emphasized. And we have to make sure that the woman is healthy and she has no high risk factors and she is otherwise fine. Oral estrogen has more favorable effects on lipid profile. Oral estrogen increases sex hormone binding globulin and makes less free testosterone. May have a negative impact on libido. And estrogen, as I already said, it's not a one size fits all. Some patient may need 1 milligram, some patient may need half of that, some patient may need 2 milligram. But always start with a smaller dose. Younger women who had bilateral oophorectomy definitely needs a larger dose. And progesterone, of course, we prefer the natural micronized progesterone, which has a favorable effect on lipid profile. All women should, with an intact uterus, should be prescribed progesterone also. And if it's a continuous therapy, 100 milligram is enough. And if it is 12-day therapy, 200 milligram should be given. And it is preferable to give it that time because the progesterone metabolites improve sleep. So it's better that she takes it at that time. And you can give the option of an LND IUS so that she need not take the progesterone orally, daily. So you put an LND IUS and give
Madam, can you be a bit faster because we are overshooting the time limit according to the organizers? I don't know.
Okay.
We'll just sum it up faster. Okay.
No, 12 more minutes are there, Dr. Shobana ma'am.
I thought you said 15 minutes is less, something like that. I understood.
No, 15 minutes more. Prasanna ma'am, please continue. Time is there.
Okay, I misunderstood.
It's okay. Headache, nausea, and breast pain definitely will have when you take hormones, especially estrogen. And almost all women experience withdrawal bleeding with cyclical therapy. And therapy is not recommended, definitely should be emphasized. This compounded bioidentical hormone therapy, where we don't know how much is all the international bodies advise against the use of this. So many preparations were available. And actually came into use around this 2002, after 2002 when the WHO study became very unpopular and the people started using this soy extract as tablets. And actually endometrial carcinoma increased because we don't know the contents, the dose, the quality, the stability. They are all beyond the regulatory oversight. And the routine use of testosterone therapy also is not recognized. It's not recommended. It's not that beneficial. And I used to remember Professor Steer, Professor Stat saying that we have to give her testosterone as well, small dose. And follow-up and monitoring, you start with this lower dose. That's very important. And then we titrate, except in the patient who had hysterectomy much earlier, you can start with a larger dose. Otherwise, you start with a lower dose and taper. And once the symptoms are relieved, you continue with the same dose. And always taper the dose. If you stop abruptly, definitely it will have symptoms. And the usual And women with anticonvulsant drugs might need more because it's an enzyme user, anticonvulsant. And women on thyroid hormone replacement might need more of thyroid. So TSH should be monitored. Endometrial evaluation, the patient say she's on combination therapy, her irregular bleeding should stop within some few months after starting. And if she continues to bleed, or she has postcoital bleeding symptoms which point towards a malignancy, she has to be evaluated. And routine mammography should be done if she is on a hormone therapy continuously. Every year we have to do a mammogram. The standard recommendation is 5 years, but never beyond 16 years. But some patients might come with symptoms, and if she doesn't respond to the other medications, then of course we have to restart her on hormonal therapy. I remember one of my cousin who had severe menopausal symptoms 10 years, up to 10 years after menopause, or say rarely one patient might need it. Primary ovarian insufficiency, you have to start early and continue till the age of menopause. MSC does not be prescribed for patients who had breast cancer. What about ovarian endometrial cancer? Lower risk patients who had lower risk disease, we can give, but with a patient who had intermediate risk or high risk disease, you should not give. And migraine is not a contraindication, as I already said. So to summarize, the primary goal of therapy is to relieve vasomotor symptoms, and other symptoms associated with this, like sleep disturbance, depression, and joint aches and pains, will respond to MST. Genitourinary symptoms respond nicely to local estrogen. Some patients who are already on oral therapy might complain of genitourinary symptoms. Then you can combine it with the local also. MST should be started during perimenopause or within at least 2 to 3 years of menopause. It can be continued for 5 years if needed. 17-beta estradiol and micronized progesterone is the choice. And always taper the dose. And it's contraindicated if the woman has a history of breast cancer or coronary heart disease. The risk assessed before you start treatment. And let us go from feminine forever to healthy forever. And I think you can see this yoga and happy, healthy postmenopausal woman. Let us add life to her years rather than years to life. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. You have extensively covered hormone therapy, and most of it is known to everybody, but I would like to highlight the things that you have told in your talk. You asked us to change the progesterone to a costlier one, but yes, you said that changing over will prevent the risk of breast cancer, which is anyway less. You have told us that after 60, you cannot start HRT, but anyway, hot flashes come much earlier in life, around the 50s. But now this corona times, when people start feeling tired, they wonder if it is hot flashes and if it is corona. And there is a question in the chat box whether you can give hormone therapy during COVID times. So you can, actually mistake your hot flashes feeling tired with the corona feeling tired. But if you are beyond 60, you cannot start HRT. That's the message that you have given in your talk. One more message that you have given: investing money in saris is not important. Invest the money in transdermal estrogen, so it will be more cardiovascular friendly. It will bypass the liver. You said using 600 milligram of progesterone during pregnancy can't cause cholestasis of pregnancy, but we use only 100 micrograms in MHT. So that point is not relevant for MHT, but yes, progesterone does that.
Not because it is relevant. I was just.
I know that was that I got that little bit of information in between your menopause talk. Also, that pearl of wisdom, I latched on to it. That was a very good point that I could learn from you. Yeah, but of course, in MHT we are not using that much of progesterone, but that was good information from you, madam. So overall, Madam, would you like to answer that question from the chat box, whether Corona times you can give HRT?
Corona has no relation with HRT.
Yes, yeah. Except that you can mistake hot flashes with the tiredness that you feel at around. But if you're starting to feel tired at 60, you can't start HRT, right, madam?
If you are Corona positive, don't give HRT at that time because coagulation will be abnormal.
Coagulation profile, that much of coagulation profile will be there, madam? We do not really have studies on that now you're putting 1 point there, yes. Maybe you can give your transdermal also is, I mean, I don't know. We really don't have studies.
Once it is over, you can give. Once it is over, you can give.
Yeah. Anyway. So we have to have some studies now. All the 50-year-old people in the panel or somewhere else, whoever has Corona and whoever doesn't have Corona, you have to find out the coagulation profile and then decide. Ajit will be able to do that better because he's got lots of Corona patients in his hospital. So coagulation profile to be added to the armamentarium of things in Kannur, no? So that we have studies for HRT. The president of AMS is also sitting here. Study on coagulation profile in 50-year-olds so that we know whether we can give HRT or not. Anyway, that's food for thought from the chat box. With that, I hand over to the organizers if there are nothing.
Yeah. Thank you, Prasanna ma'am, for that wonderful talk. It was so useful to everyone, and so many comments are coming